Welcome, Fohrcast, episode number 6. I'm taking my first break from work since COVID, since I think my last day off was March 9th or something. Here at Fohr, when summer kicked off, I wanted to make sure that every employee took at least 3 days off this summer. 3 days is not, I will say, like that is not the max they can take off. That was just the minimum that was like forced. You absolutely have to take this. This summer was going to be more intense than usual, and that would put more strain on the team, and it was more important than ever for them to take time off. Without any plans, it is hard to take time off. Without the ability to go anywhere, it's hard to take time off. One of the things that is so exhausting as a content creator, as an influencer, you don't go to an office from 10 to 6 and then like put your phone in a lockbox and be like, see you tomorrow. You're working constantly, you're working weekends, you're working nights. I encourage y'all to think about the last time you had a break. For a lot of people, money is tight right now. It is a difficult time for influencers. There have been less deals than usual. You're probably making less money than you usually would. That doesn't mean you don't deserve some time off. It doesn't mean that time off isn't gonna pay dividends and allow you to push through to the end of the year, because it is not going to get easier, and make sure you take care of yourself. New feature I wanna maybe do a little bit more is just talk through a post that I saw this week, whether Fohr worked on it or not, that I thought was effective, and kind of break down what I think works about it. So this week's post is from J Piece. The Instagram is Piece of Us X. First thing, when you're going through the feed, you need to create an image that's gonna get people to stop. She did something creative with her in kind of 2 different scenarios. Like, she has photoshopped herself inside of this mirror that she's holding on the bed, and she is also sitting there. And what is great is, like, when you go into the caption, the tone is congruent. Like, the tone goes through to that caption. That playfulness goes to the caption. She says, list of things that I've been doing during quarantine. Number 1, skincare. Number 2, taking care of my babies. Number 3, eat ice cream. Number 4, skincare. Number 5, skincare. She's about to talk about skincare. But like, she's caveated that with some personality. Then she says, like, go to my stories to see, presumably I think her husband, who's also been using the product, and see his skin go from blah to whoa. So many things happening right here. Image that stops you, a caption that is full of personality, and then a call to action. Go to my stories. Not to see more of the same thing that you've just seen in the post, but to see something different, to see her husband using the skincare and to see his skin benefit from it. Well done in the post. Feel free to submit your post to me if you think you've done a sponsored post or a post about a product that is exceptionally good. DM it to me, DM it to Fohr, and we'll take a look at it. I'll be highlighting 1 post a week that I think really nailed it. Let's get into questions. Question number 1, where do you draw the line when a brand doesn't seem to be offering any more paid gigs? So the context of this question is that 9 months ago, an influencer was paid for a job, and then since then, the brand has been reaching out. They've done 3 different posts about charity initiatives or things the brand is working on but haven't been paid. And so what do you do there, right? You worked with them once, but no other paid gigs have shown up. What's your goal here, right? Your goal is to get another paid gig with the brand. We don't know what's happening at the brand. They might have budgets frozen. A lot of brands right now literally have told people, do not spend a cent, right? There's a lot of brands right now that are laying off huge percentages of their staff, right? And so this is a really difficult time for brands. You don't know that paid gigs have existed and you haven't gotten them, or if there are no paid gigs. I think that's important context, because obviously the influencer who asked this, right? They've done everything right. They're working to build a relationship. They got paid, and then they were happy to support the brand to build an ongoing relationship, but they want to know now, was that a one-off, or are there paid gigs in the future? And I think that part of any relationship is trust and honesty. So I think that, like, I would just approach it with total honesty and say, hey, I was so excited when y'all reached out, and I loved working on the campaign we did, whatever the paid one was. Since then, I understood that the market is difficult and times are tough, and I've been happy to support you guys because I do see this as a long-term relationship. But I just want to know, are there going to be more paid opportunities in the future or not? And I think that's a totally fair question. People say that, like, it's just business, but I understand it's emotional, it's personal, especially for influencers. This is your, it's your business is literally you and your audience and your view of the world. And so I think these things can feel personal, but you have to try and remember that you don't know everything that is happening. And if you focus on the goal, and the goal is, I want to continue to have a relationship with this brand, I just want to get paid. What's the best way to answer the questions I don't know? Are there paid gigs happening and I'm not getting them? Or are there no paid gigs happening right now? If you ask the question like, hey, as we said, I'm interested in building a relationship, it's why I've been supportive, I also understand that times are tough, but I'm wondering if there's any paid opportunities on the horizon. If you come with honesty and empathy, my expectation and hope is that you are met with honesty and empathy. And if you're not, if they're rude, then perfect. You don't have to work with them. You can stop posting about them and you can move on and build a relationship with a brand that really wants to have a long-term relationship with you. But I think you're doing everything right, and don't be afraid to ask the questions that you really want the answers to. Question number 2, what advice would you give people who are trying to produce educational content in a way that is captivating to the audience? We've seen a lot of what we call internally illustrative education, Instagram posts that are 10 slides, illustrated, taking a complex problem and trying to make it digestible and shareable. I think when you're teaching somebody, it is first important to check your motivations. Ask yourself what you want, right? Do you want to teach your audience something that they don't know, or do you want to make yourself sound smart? I think that if you approach something and say, I legitimately, the reason I am doing this is because I want the person who reads it to benefit and to learn something, I think that is the first step. And you would think that's a prerequisite to all educational content, but it absolutely is not. So first things first, you have to understand the topic so well that you can take something that is complex, confusing, and distill it into something that people will instantly understand. That is a really hard thing to do, but if you can do it, that is how you make educational content go viral. The parameters of what is possible, right? You've got an Instagram post, you can do 10 slides. That might mean that you can't explain everything about a cause, everything about something that you're interested in. It's about staying really focused and trying to get that insight, trying to get that aha moment, that light bulb moment, that thing that is going to make people remember it and want to share it. That is the most important thing in creating educational content. If I have one piece of advice, it would just be learn more. You just have to understand something so fundamentally and completely to be able to distill it into something really, really simple. Einstein always said, if you can't explain something to a child, you don't understand it well enough. I think it's a good lesson to remember if you're looking to create educational content. Question number 3, how do you think 2020 has made the marketing industry reevaluate or pivot on a larger scale? So 2020 has been a year full of change, and I think that we will look back on this summer. For decades, we'll be able to look back to this summer and say, that is when things started to change. And I think right now and in the immediate future, what is going to change in marketing is that marketers are just more careful with everything they do. And I think there's 2 big reasons. One, budgets are tighter, right? When business is booming and budgets are big, there's just not as much scrutiny over every single dollar spent. But when budgets are getting slashed, when it's between your marketing budget or these 2 people's jobs, you better believe that those things are getting looked at a lot more. And so marketers are a lot more intentional and careful with the content that they put out because it absolutely has to perform. The second reason is, with the aftermath of George Floyd's murder and the protests and the calls for equity and justice in not just the world, but also in the marketing world, brands have had to listen a lot more to their communities and their customers, and they've had to check themselves and their biases and their assumptions and make sure the things they're doing or the ads that they're putting into the world are representative of their values and reflect the values also of their customers or the customers they want to win. And so there is just this increased attention and care and intention in the things that marketers are doing. Everything has to be more intentional, better thought out. The stakes are just so much higher. today than they were 6 months ago. And I think that is going to be the case for quite a long time to come. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Ask the questions, subscribe to the podcast, follow our YouTube, do all of the things, and we will see you next week.